everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling something that every teacher needs at some point, but that a lot of teachers kind of dread, and I would put myself in that category. Resumes. You know, we are going to deep dive into teacher resumes.
Oh, yes. A lot of people are afraid of those.
Yeah, and actually, I have a resource. It's a podcast episode that we are going to use as our source material.
Yeah.
And we are going to deep dive into this. We're not just going to repeat everything they said. We are going to extract the best tips and add our own 2 cents to help you craft a resume that's going to get you the job you want. So if you're ready to level up your resume game and make sure that your resume doesn't just land on the principal's desk, but that it leaps off the page and screams, "Hire me!"
Yes.
Then you're in the right place.
So, that's very cool.
Let's dive right in. Now, the first thing that they talked about in this podcast episode was the summary statement. You know, that little paragraph at the top.
Oh.
And I think a lot of us, especially when we're new teachers, we just kind of think,
Just skip over it.
yeah, isn't it obvious? But there's no, that is your elevator pitch, your chance to make a powerful first impression. So.
And I think a lot of people think, well, it's a teaching resume. They know I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to think about it. You're in a stack of maybe, 50 resumes.
Right.
That all say the same thing. You have to stand out.
Totally. When I was making my first resume, I just thought, I'm a teacher. But our source stresses showcasing personality and passion.
Yes.
In this section, not just what you've done. So, for example, instead of saying experienced teacher with a passion for education, you could say something like dedicated and innovative educator with a proven track record of fostering student growth and a deep commitment to creating inclusive learning environments.
Yeah. Now that tells a story. And that's what you want. You're not just saying what you did. You're giving them a little story of who you are as a teacher.
Right, exactly. And that takes us kind of into the next section, which is your experience. And the source really stressed going beyond listing your duties. It's about highlighting your impact, the tangible results you've achieved. And this is where I think a lot of teachers get stuck. We think about the day-to-day tasks and forget to step back. But numbers, as our source points out, speak volumes. Principals want to see evidence of your effectiveness. So instead of saying improved student engagement, you might say implemented a project-based learning approach that increased student participation by 20% and resulted in higher grades on end-of-unit assessment.
Perfect. You've given them numbers. Now, one thing I think is really important too, and our source kind of touches on this, is think about what level you're teaching. If you're applying for an elementary position, you are going to want to use different words than if you were applying for a high school position.
Right. If you're an elementary school teacher, you're going to be talking more about classroom management, for younger kids.
Right. Social emotional learning, and things like that. So you want to really make sure that the language you're using matches the age group that you're applying for.
Yeah. And if you're high school, maybe you're going to talk about preparing for standardized tests or AP exams. Or,
absolutely.
So it's really important. And going back to what you said, quantifying achievements, instead of saying improved student performance in math, you could say developed and implemented a math intervention program that resulted in a 15% increase in standardized test scores.
Right. And again, you're giving them the numbers to back it up. Now, one thing I will add, too, is you don't just want to list numbers. You want to tell a story.
Right.
If you're talking about this math intervention, did you notice that a particular student was struggling? What did you do? How did you develop this program? Just little things like that to kind of really paint a picture of what you did.
Right. So the numbers aren't just there, alone. It's part of your story.
Part of your story. Absolutely.
Okay. Now let's talk about the skills section. So the source broke it down into hard skills and soft skills. I like to think of it like baking a cake, right? You have the hard skills. That's knowing the recipe, right? The ingredients, how to mix it. But the soft skills are,
making it look pretty.
Yeah, the decorating. And the source points out some key soft skills that principals are looking for. Things like communication, patience, adaptability, empathy, and a collaborative spirit.
Right. And so many times people will just say, oh, I'm good at communication. Well, we all think we're good at communication.
Yeah.
But how do you show them that?
Yeah.
Instead of just listing communication as a skill, say successfully facilitated communication between parents, students, and staff to create a supportive learning environment or something like that. Show them what you did.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. So instead of just telling them, show them how you used your skills.
Yeah.
So give them a little story.
Right. So it's not just, I'm good at this. It's like, here's how I've used these skills. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, our source also talked about, obviously your experience and skills, but that your education and your certifications are also very important. Make sure those are clear,
Right.
concise, and, easy to find on your resume.
And I would add to that, if you have any special certifications, if you're ESL certified, bilingual, gifted, anything like that, and it applies to the job that you're applying for,
Yeah.
make sure you highlight that.
Right.
Make it bold. Put it at the top.
Yeah.
You want them to see that right away.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to
Yeah.
toot your own horn a little bit. Now, there's another section that I think, especially new teachers, we kind of gloss over, but it can really set you apart, and that's extracurricular activities. Now, I know when I was a new teacher, I thought this section was just,
Hobbies.
yeah, what are your hobbies?
Yeah.
But it's a chance to showcase your passion and commitment
Yes.
to education beyond the classroom. So, for example, if you volunteer with the literacy program or you coach a debate team or, something like that, it shows that you're...
And this is really important, too, because it can give them an idea of who you are as a person.
Right. Right.
Like, what are you passionate about?
Right.
Because that's going to translate into your classroom.
Exactly. Now, along those same lines, I'm going back to what we were saying about quantifying.
Yeah.
Instead of saying volunteered with a local youth organization,
Right.
you could say mentored a group of underprivileged students, helping them improve their reading skills by 10% over a 6-month period. So again, you're using those numbers, but you're telling a story of what you did. All right. So we've talked about a lot of different pieces of the resume. Now let's talk about presentation because it matters, right? I think we've all seen resumes where it's a disaster. So our source agreed that a well-organized, easy-to-read resume is crucial. It's like setting up a classroom where kids can learn.
Yes. And think about it. You're a teacher. You know what a good classroom looks like.
Right.
Set up your resume the same way. Clear headings, make sure it's easy to follow. There's white space, so it's not just a giant block of text.
Yeah. Like when I was first starting out, I thought more was better. And so I just
crammed it all in.
I crammed as much as I could in there. And it's like, no, less is more. So
this is more.
And speaking of, making it shine, the most important thing. Proofreading. I think we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Where you've been staring at it so long that you miss the most obvious mistakes.
Yeah. I always tell people, read your resume out loud.
Right?
Slowly. Because your brain will trick you when you're just reading it in your head.
Yeah.
When you read it out loud,
you're more likely
to catch those mistakes.
Catch it. Okay, so we've covered,
yes,
quite a bit in this first part of our deep dive.
Yes, we have.
We've talked about that summary statement.
Right.
Showcasing your experience with numbers and hard skills, soft skills, credentials, extracurriculars, and presentation.
Yeah, we laid a good foundation.
Yeah. So when we come back for part 2, we are going to dive into some specific strategies to really make your resume shine and stand out from the crowd. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone.
Yay.
We are talking all things teacher resumes. And I'm excited to continue this journey with all of you.
Yeah. It's really interesting because we spend so much time as teachers, learning about pedagogy and classroom management, all those things.
Right.
We don't always spend a lot of time learning how to market ourselves.
Yes.
Which is really what a resume is. And in this competitive job market, it's more important now than ever.
Yeah. A resume is so important. It's like that first impression.
Right.
And we were talking in the last part about, really showcasing your passion and skills.
Yes.
And making sure it's easy to read.
Yeah. But our source really stressed the importance of tailoring your resume to the specific school or district you're targeting.
Absolutely. That is so important.
So it's like you wouldn't teach kindergarten the same way you would teach high school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't wear the same outfit to a job interview as you would wear, to go to the grocery store.
Right. Exactly.
So think about your resume the same way.
Okay, so how can teachers make sure that they're tailoring their resume to a specific school?
Well, first of all, research. Research the school. Look at their website.
Yeah.
Read their mission statement. Look at their social media. Get a feel for the culture of the school and what they value.
Okay. So, when I was applying for my current position, I spent a lot of time on the school website. I read, every page, I think.
Yes.
And I really tried to get a sense of...
And that shows initiative, too, to the principal. You've taken the time to learn about their school.
Okay, good. Good to know. So then once you've done your research, what's next?
Well then, you want to start thinking about how your experiences and skills align with what they value. So for example, if the school really emphasizes, let's say, project-based learning,
Okay.
you're going to want to highlight any experience you have with project-based learning. Put that front and center. Use those keywords.
Well, keywords. Yes, our source mentioned those too. So it's like those specific words or phrases
Yes.
that principals were looking for. So if the job description mentions,
Yeah, like differentiated instruction, classroom
Yeah.
management, technology integration.
right, make sure you put those in your resume.
Yes, because those are the things they're going to be scanning for.
Okay, so it's like we're speaking their language
Absolutely.
so that they understand exactly what we're bringing to the table. Okay. Now, there's another section that our source talked about that I think is interesting. It's the other or additional information section.
Yes. And this is where you can really let your personality shine through.
Okay, so this is kind of like our chance to...
It's like the bonus features on a DVD.
Okay.
I like that. They're not the main feature, but they're those little extras that kind of round out the experience.
Okay.
So in this section, you could talk about anything that's relevant to the job that might not fit in those other categories.
Mm.
So for example, if you're fluent in another language,
Okay.
mention that here.
Yeah.
If you have any special hobbies or interests that are related to teaching, like maybe you're really into educational technology or you're a big fan of, outdoor education,
Right?
things like that, this is the place to mention them.
I've always loved incorporating music into my lessons.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So you could mention that here. You could say, proficient in playing the guitar or experienced in leading a school choir or something like that.
Oh, I like it. Okay. Now, I want to talk about something that I think a lot of teachers struggle with,
Okay.
and that is action verbs.
Yes.
Our source really emphasized using those strong action verbs to make our resume more dynamic and engaging. But sometimes I feel like
Yeah, it can be hard to come up with.
it's hard to think of them on the spot,
Right. And you want to avoid those kind of generic verbs like responsible for or assisted with. Everybody uses those. You want to use something that's going to grab their attention.
Right. Okay. So instead of saying responsible for creating lesson plans, you
Right.
could say designed and implemented or collaboratively developed or
Facilitated.
led.
Yeah.
Think about those action verbs that really showcase what you did.
Okay. So it's about
Yeah.
taking action
Taking action, being proactive.
and showing,
Yeah.
and showing that.
And showcasing your skills.
Okay. Now, I want to circle back to something our source said that really resonated with me.
Okay.
And that is the idea of telling a story
Yes.
with your resume.
Yes.
So it's not just about, listing facts and figures. It's about,
It's about creating a narrative that showcases your journey as a teacher
right.
and your passion for education.
Okay. So how can we do that? Well, think about your resume like a novel, right? It has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Okay.
Your summary statement is like the introduction. It sets the stage for who you are as a teacher. Your experience section is like the main plot. It's where you really get to showcase what you've done and the impact you've had.
And then the additional information section, that's
That's like the epilogue. It's where you tie everything together and leave the reader with a lasting impression.
oh, I love it. Okay, so it's like we're writing our teaching memoir in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like a good memoir, you want to be selective about the details you include. Choose the experiences and accomplishments that best highlight your strengths and align with the school's values.
Okay. So it's not about listing every single thing you've ever done.
It's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Mm-hmm.
You want to choose those experiences that really showcase who you are as a teacher and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, because when I was first starting out, I thought, the more the better.
Right.
But I quickly realized that a cluttered resume
Yeah.
is overwhelming.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like a classroom that's too full of stuff.
Yeah.
The kids can't focus.
Right, exactly.
So keep it clean, keep it organized, and use those headings and bullet points to make it easy to read.
So we want our resume to be like a well-organized, inviting classroom
Exactly.
where the principal can come in and be like, this is where I want to be.
Yes. And speaking of making a good impression, we can't forget about the visual appeal of the resume. Make sure you choose a professional font, use consistent formatting, and leave plenty of white space.
Oh, yeah, white space is so important.
White space is your friend.
Yeah, makes it so much easier to read. And I used to think I need to use all these different fonts and colors to make it stand out, but I realized,
Keep it simple.
yeah, simple is better.
Simple is always better.
Okay, now, last but not least, we have to talk about proofreading.
Yes. proofread, proofread, proofread.
I think we've all been there where we've submitted something and then,
Yeah, you find a typo later.
yes, and you're like, oh no.
And it's like, oh, I wish I could take that back. So proofread carefully. Have a friend proofread it. Read it out loud. Do whatever you need to do to make sure there are no mistakes.
You know, it's amazing how much we can learn from just one podcast episode about teacher resumes.
It is. And I hope our listeners are finding this helpful.
Me too. And before we wrap up this part, I want to remind everyone that we have one more part to go.
Yes.
In part 3, we are going to talk about cover letters and some other strategies for making your resume truly shine. And I think you're going to love it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We are wrapping up our 3-part series on teacher resumes. And I feel like if you've been with us this whole time,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of great tips and tricks
Yes, you do.
to help you craft a resume that really stands out. But we have a few more things to cover.
We do. We save the best for last.
I like it. Okay, so one of the things our source really emphasized was thinking about your resume like you're dressing for an interview.
Oh, yes.
Right. You want to kind of...
You want to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
Make a good first impression.
And so she was saying, think about your resume that way too and really tailor it to each specific
Right.
school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget that
Yeah.
when you're applying for lots of jobs. But it's so important because every school, every district is a little bit different.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're highlighting the experiences and skills that are going to be most relevant to that particular school.
So it's like if a school really emphasizes community involvement,
Yes.
you're going to want to put that front and center. Talk about, your volunteer work.
Right. Highlight those things that show you're a team player.
Yeah, or maybe like leading parent workshops or
which, I mean,
anything like that.
Yes. Or if technology is really important to the school, and it usually is these days,
Yes.
make sure you're showcasing your tech skills.
Right. Like I'm proficient with Google Classroom, or I can create interactive whiteboards, or...
Yeah. Or you've used virtual reality in the classroom, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's going to set you apart.
Okay, so we want to really make sure that our resume is like speaking directly to that school. Now, our source had some interesting things to say about cover letters.
Oh, yes. Cover letters. People hate cover letters.
I do. I think a lot of us, we feel like,
What do I say?
yeah, it's just repeating.
It's on the resume.
Yeah, everything that's already in our resume. But she had some good tips. She said,
Yeah.
think about your cover letter as a conversation
Oh, like that.
with the principal,
Yeah.
right? So it's a chance for you to really
Yeah.
elaborate on your experiences, maybe share a specific anecdote.
Yes. Yeah. Tell a story
Or, that really shows your personality and why you would be the perfect fit.
and your passion.
Yeah.
You want them to see that you're excited about this opportunity.
Okay. So it's not just a formal, like, here's my resume, but it's like,
It's like a handshake.
yeah.
You're introducing yourself.
Oh, I like that. Okay. So as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. Remember, your resume is just one piece of the puzzle when
Right.
it comes to getting a job, but it's an important piece.
Absolutely.
And we hope that through this deep dive, you have gained some valuable insights and tools to help you create a resume that really showcases
You're brilliant.
all the amazing things you have to offer as a teacher.
You are amazing.
And remember, the job search can be tough, but believe in yourself. You've got this, and we are cheering you on every step of the way. So thank you for joining us
Yes. Thank you.
for this deep dive into teacher resumes. And we hope you'll join us next time for another exciting episode of The Deep Dive.